Hello, good morning, and happy Friday, everybody. Hopefully you've had a good day. Um, I didn't stream yesterday because of just spending a little bit too much just unable to like get enough sleep, so I needed to sleep in a little bit. But I was able to get that sleep again last night, so we're back. Twisted Seed, hello, good morning. How are you doing today? Hopefully good. So we are going to be looking into Tailwind CSS today. So I have to admit, I don't really I haven't looked into Tailwind at all. I'm not really familiar with it. I don't really know what it is. I think it's just a normal CSS framework, but looking at this first sort of like page here, I think that it's actually maybe a little bit different than just a framework. So comparing it to something like Bootstrap, um, I I sort of feel that it might be a little bit more hands-on, build your own framework, if that makes sense. That's just from first impressions, just from like this, and maybe clicking around just a tiny little bit inside. But I want to see how easy it would be to like get something going in Tailwind, and then getting this into our app. So looking at getting started here. Okay, so Tailwind CSS starts by scanning all your HTML files, JavaScript components, and any other templates for class names, generating the corresponding styles, and then writing them to a static CSS file. Yeah. So I really don't think this is gonna work. It is assuming we have JavaScript components. We don't. We have, we kind of do, but not really, because all the stuff that we're doing is going to be turned into WebAssembly. And while there's a bunch of JavaScript created by you for us, a lot of that is actually just glue code for the WebAssembly that our logic turns into. So I'm not confident that our code has CSS. I'm now a little bit curious about this. So if we go into one of our components, let's see. Here's our platform. Components, let's go to top menu, for example. Oh, here we have, we were putting in Bootstrap in here to sort of like play around with it. And I think setting up Bootstrap in here is as easy as going to our index.html and adding in Bootstrap. So if I just comment, that's okay. Oh, it's 2 lines, that's why. If I comment you out, okay. Then I think the only thing we were using was this top menu. I don't think any of you had stuff in here. Okay, so let's see. Nav class equals, we'll just call this, I wonder if I do this. Okay, so if I leave these classes, we're going to lose the Bootstrap, but supposedly it's going to scan our classes. I still doubt this is going to work. I want to verify that I don't have any errors, like attempting to like use Bootstrap or something like that. Okay, so absolutely no styles whatsoever. Kind of what we were expecting. I do have an error, but it's the error that like I always run. So reasons. Okay, so you're good to go here. Debugger. You're not loading anything here. now we can see, here's our JavaScript file. If I search for navbar expand inside of here, I don't think it's gonna find it. Yeah, it's not gonna find this because this is like a wrapper code that's basically calling stuff from inside of WASM. In here is where we're gonna see that kind of stuff, and it's probably compiled away, so fun. Uncle Scientist, raiding with a party of 18. Welcome, 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 Uncle Scientist and raiders. Uncle Scientist, how was your stream today? Were you, I can't remember, are you still working on that? There's the next chapter of the parser book, but I forget what that was because I wasn't watching it this morning. It's been a couple days since I've seen it. So you were gonna, okay, you're back to the text editor now. Well, how's that going? And everybody else, how's your day going too? Well, we are working on Yew.rs, which is a web framework written in Rust. Okay, you started syntax highlighting. Okay, that's going to be interesting. I was thinking about Atom recently because of the big announcement GitHub had where they're sunsetting Atom and they're archiving the GitHub repos for it. Next up, learn how to write an LSP client. Oh, you're going full in on everything. Yeah, you're going to know so much about all those low-level backend type things. You're going to do all sorts of interesting stuff. But I wonder if you write the highlighting in that sort of like same style as the compiler, where you can like turn it into a syntax tree, and would that be faster? So thinking about Atom, now that it's being sunsetted, I remembered that Atom was slow because they used, for multiple reasons, but one of them was they used regular expressions for everything. So their syntax highlighting was regular expressions, and they had tons of them, tons of nasty, long, huge ones, and they would just like run them, and they would, it would just slow and bog everything down, even though they worked really well from a like actually detect and then highlight point of view, not a speed point of view. So I wonder if that would actually be faster. But yeah, it's sort of like something interesting to think about. All right, so what we're doing today is we're exploring Tailwind CSS with Yew.rs. So currently we have, I have this, Atom was your first text editor. Very nice. Yeah, Atom was my first web dev text editor. Cat was yours. Oh, cat with a redirect, right? Yeah, I remember those days. My one of my old coworkers had that list. Oh, I can't remember what it was, but it was something like the different levels of a programmer, and like the uber, like the best level, the like you're a guru, you're a ninja level was use cat and a redirect to write all of your to write like your device drivers. All right, so we have Yew.rs. If you're not familiar with that, it is Rust, and we can write sort of standard components in Rust. We have HTML here, which is sort of like JSX if you're familiar with web development, using something like React. It allows us to write mostly HTML. I would actually say that this is a lot closer to HTML than JSX is. Mostly because there's no class keyword in Rust, which means I can just use class and don't have to do that silly class name thing. Grabbing out individual things is a little bit weird. I have to do like templating just for hard-coded strings, which is interesting. But at the same time, I have access to like macros and all sorts of other stuff. So it is pretty cool and fun. So this top menu shows up in our app that we built right here. And so we can inspect this and see here is our nav with the classes that we've created and everything else. And we can actually do style type things. There is a style in Rust, sort of like system that we've used, and it's pretty nice. But we're also looking into external frameworks. So last stream we got Bootstrap working. That was easy, like no problem whatsoever. Got a request to look into Tailwind though, which I've never looked into before. So I'm actually really interested in it. So their first thing is installation, Tailwind CLI. It will scan all of your files for class names, generating the corresponding styles, and then writing them to a static CSS file. So I am not confident that this could even come close to working. So install Tailwind CSS. So install this from npm. Patatas, hello. You've been trying Sycamore Rust recently, and you like it. What exactly is Sycamore? Is it also a front-end framework? Configure your template paths. Add the paths to all your template files in your Tailwind config. So you can see that is all this there. Add the Tailwind directives to your CSS. To my main CSS file, okay. Start the Tailwind CLI build process. Start using Tailwind in your HTML. Well, this part would work. There's a Tailwind CSS standalone. Maybe that could work. Well, I'm thinking this part. So like, if I don't do this, but pretty much everything else, because then here, start using Tailwind. Like if I just do this href, I could. So I'm almost thinking that this would be a separate project, so that Tailwind would be shared by like multiple systems, and then I would potentially deploy this to like imagine like an S3 bucket with a CloudFront layer on top of that for a CDN. That might work. Because there's these other systems here. Installing Tailwind CSS as a post-CSS plugin is the most seamless way to integrate it with build tools like Webpack, Rollup, Byte, and Parcel. None of which we're using. I mean, it's possible that Webpack is being used way behind the scenes. It's also a front-end framework focused on reactivity without a virtual DOM. Well, I mean, everything is a virtual DOM these days. I mean, it feels like it, so that could be interesting. They're not using something like jQuery behind the scenes, right? Are they doing it all native, or are they using jQuery for their DOM manipulation part? Add Tailwind to your post CSS configuration. Okay, so you still have this. You're installing this into like a package.json. You create the config like previous. We add those. Start your build process. Wait. doesn't say how to like add it in to your other thing. So I'm still thinking that this Tailwind CLI and then have Tailwind be a separate project would be the best so far. Framework guides. Well, I mean, gee, I wonder why I can't find Yew. I don't think Yew is sort of like on their radar. Maybe someday it would be. And I suppose it would really be Trunk. Because like Trunk is the closest to like Parcel. Pudada, hello. It would be very similar to any other. Let's see. So they're installing Parcel. Install. You just set up build and specific to specific file place. Yeah. So I'm wondering. I guess like it's the content. What's this going to be? Like, what is that really? Everything else makes sense, though. Because, like, okay, we're going to href from where we're expecting it to be. And then body, okay, so... start using it. So... All right, so I see two choices here. First of all, we put it inside of here, inside the platform. That's one setup. That's the like setup Tailwind as part of platform itself. However, I'm kind of thinking that it might be good to set up Tailwind outside of here. So what if we do like, I don't know, just Tailwind here. We'll keep it isolated for right now. And then I want to use CLI method for this because I think that's going to make the most sense because we're going to export it. As just a file. And then from inside of here, I can have from inside there. Well, no, I can't just output it, can I? I have to output. Oh, I might want to create a like a web server that serves that up. Because that would be the closest to reality where you'd use some kind of CDN to serve up the files. Okay. So I might use something like Light Server with Node. So okay, let's Tanaka, hello. You can generate the output CSS with Tailwind CSS and then Trunk copy that file as part of the build. Oh yeah, that works too. And I could actually have Trunk copy it from the other project. So I guess, oh yeah, okay. So that in that case, I could do Tailwind inside of platform too, if I did that. So Tailwind would be in here. It would be outside of source. Trunk even has build hooks, so it could trigger npm mtx as part of a build, but I imagine that'd be rather slow. I mean, yeah, it would be rather slow, but that would be perfect for like a CI/CD system. For like, okay, we're gonna build for release, go ahead and do that. But yeah, like normally, for like speed of development, It might be better to have them be separate. Now, okay, so we have the trunk dot. I have the trunk.toml. That's inside of this web app, so that tells me you'll need to be in here. For just copying output CSS, you could use the copy file directive in trunk's index.html. Right, we did that before. Hold on, let's take a look. Where is that? Here it is. We have this copy directory for like source static. So inside of source, I have this static folder. We could then, here's like this main CSS that we could then potentially use. I am not pulling that in right now. So there's, I don't actually need this main CSS. We can delete that. Uh-oh. What was that? Let's take a look at that link. Oh, it's, yeah, I have a lot of whitelisted, sort of like link sources. That was, oh, trunk.rs dev, that's the right site, right? Yeah, trunk.rs dev. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna whitelist the trunk.rs.dev. Or I guess it was trunkrs.dev, not .rs. Where am I going? Spam protection, links. Okay. Try that link again. I am now allowing anything from trunkrs.dev. There we go. Perfect. All right, so if I copy you. All right, so here's where you're linked. So yeah, we have the copy file, and then I already have this copy directory that copies that over. So right now, the way we have this set up in index.html, we have this link data trunk rel directory copy, so copy source static. So over here we have the static directory that has the brooks.png image. This is this image right here in the upper left. Whenever I do a compile, it will then sort of like follow this. It actually removes this link tag from the HTML after it's done. And then it copies that into dist. And no, sorry, not that dist, this dist. And here's the static with this. And it overwrites that every single time. So what I can do is set up Tailwind. I need to set it up inside of here, so it's going to output its files into source static. And it has to be in here. We found out that the source has, does it have to be? No, it doesn't. So hold on, let's move this out here. So you're not in the source code anymore. And I can just say static. Now Tailwind, I'm gonna have you output to here. Okay. Let's see. Ruckna082, hello. What is this Docker and cargo thing you saw a lot in GitHub projects? Okay, so two things. Docker is a virtualization, sort of like you might hear like the terms containerization, that kind of stuff. It basically allows us to lightweight run run sort of like virtual servers, virtual computers on my computer. So it's sort of like a oh, what are those called? Trying to just blanked out on the name of the systems you use. It's new times built over old times vagrant. Yeah, so like if you've ever used anything that allows you to like install a completely different operating system on your computer, it's sort of like that, except it's not quite as isolated. So it doesn't carve out unique memory. It doesn't carve out, it does carve out hard drive space, but like besides that, nothing else. VirtualBox, VMware, like a hypervisor type thing. Virtual machine, lightweight container. Yeah, exactly. So thank you, Fiery Drake. Thank you, Rekna and Pudada. Yeah, so it's basically a virtual machine. Now, anybody who really knows Docker will then like start getting really upset at me for saying that. So I would say it's a while you're first starting, like when you're first starting learning, use that as like the basis of your information, but that will quickly be replaced by like what's actually happening, which is there's a lot of shared resources behind the system, behind the scenes. What task does it accomplish though? It accomplishes the kind of the same task, but in a more lightweight way. Basically, I want to be able to ensure the exact same environment that all my stuff is running on, and it doesn't matter what computer this is running on, or at least I want to pretend that I do. So I have a Docker thing running right now, so we can take a look at this Docker file. So I'm saying, okay, I want it to run Rust. I want to guarantee that that's going to run. Behind the scenes, I think that's running Ubuntu. So have like an Ubuntu VM kind of. On a Mac, it actually is running a VM. And then just this describes how things are going to work. So create this virtual machine kind of sort of thing and expose port 8080 from it. Give me a full like a directory in there and allow me to like attach external things to it. Run this code when you first set up. So that way when I then create the container, it's all good there. Yeah, exactly, Tanaka. Exactly. So the task it accomplishes is creating essentially the equivalent of a VM, but really, 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 really fast. Have I tried Tori yet? No, not yet. It's on my list. You don't need the cargo install wasm bindgen CLI step anymore. Trunk downloads a precompiled binary for you automatically. Wait, did it? We literally the other day had to add this in because it was failing. Did they just update? Is it not needed anymore? I think it was last week that we had to add this in. And it was failing until we did. You know about that, Peter Rero? Well, because you developed that feature in Trunk? Okay. Interesting. Okay, so I will trust you. Since, you kind of developed that feature in Trunk. Also, thank you for developing in Trunk. It is an amazing tool. I love it. Unless there's some weird behavior inside of the Rust latest image that breaks it. I don't know. We could test it, but I don't know if I want to test that right this second. I mean, it'll be pretty obvious, and I have the Git history in case something weird goes on. We can find out what happened. Being the current maintainer of Trunk, but yes, thank you so much for all your hard work with that. Trunk is amazing. I love it. There is one thing that would take trunk from its current status of amazing and make it impossible to use anything else ever, which would be the ability to compile to individual web components. I think that would be a trunk thing as opposed to just like a Yew thing, but I don't actually know how I would do that either. You stepped in rather late. The original developer is still somewhat around. That's what happens in open source though, right? Like people change. Like they get burned out, or they just like no longer have feeling needed for it, or they just want to do something else. No, not like web workers. I mean like an actual web component. So I have this thought of how we can do stuff in a web to make things a little bit more portable. So imagine, if you will, that I can create a component library, but this component library would be 100% portable. It can go anywhere to any framework. It doesn't care about anything. So I could create a single component, maybe this like something like this icon component. This icon component takes in properties and then does stuff and then emits out things. Emits out events. Well, web components have a structure to do that. So I could by hand create a web component and do that way. And that would work just fine. And then I can take that component and I can load it into a React app, or I could load it into a Vue app or an Angular app, which would then allow me to write components in, like basically individual components in Rust, compile them with trunk, and then use them everywhere, which would be super, super nice. I love that. I love that idea. There is only one framework that I'm aware of that is available for this web components. King, hello. Web components. I think it's this material. Is it this one? Yeah, it's this one. Material web components. And so if we come here to like this MWC button, this is a true web component. The really nice thing about this is all of the styles and everything else is completely internalized to it. There is absolutely no dependencies that you need because it's just a completely self-encased web component. That's the best thing about web components. There's no glue needed for the stuff outside. Because web components is a standard, you just need to make sure the component itself follows the right things. But I guess like if it's in WebAssembly, maybe you do. Possibly. I don't know enough about it. I've never made a web component from scratch before, but I have used the Vue.js CLI tools have the ability to compile your project as web components, and it's actually really cool. I was able to take that and then import that into a Laravel project, and it just worked. It was great. You have experience with Unity, made softwares with C using WinAPI, etc., but you want to gain some web experience, specifically backend. What do you think you should start with? What's your goal? Like, what's the end goal with this? Think you pretty recently saw talk about how flawed web components are. I mean, there's definitely some flaws, but there's a really cool use case for it. You can't merge WASM files as easily as some. Oh, okay. So it's okay. So if it was the WebAssembly part is what makes it not work out too well. Okay, that makes sense. You don't like web components because it's hard to make them work with server-side rendering and hydration. Okay. Fair point with that. For specifically like more atomic style components where it would be buttons, maybe you wouldn't need to hydrate them completely, but hydrate is sort of like a page at a time, and then have the components be loaded that way. I think the general idea, I mean, it's a saying, let's merge cat and grep into a single binary without the source. Yeah, that's true. That's true. End goal, make a website where I can store and display data kind of like YouTube, but light version. Data, so videos? Like, are we talking about videos, or are we talking about like pictures? Or are we talking about text? So like there's 3 different versions of that. Where we have like Twitter, which is just like text. We have images like Imgur, and then we have PDFs. Okay, PDFs and text. So files and text. I think, let's see, there's a couple ways to sort of like get into that. It also depends upon, are you eventually trying to get a job with this, or are you just trying to do it for fun and learning? Do you have like a technology you want to use? There's a couple other questions sort of like dive into before recommendations happen. Redis CLI done. I mean, yeah, but that might exactly be it at the end. Plus, also it might end up being something like Vue or React too, depending upon like how portable, or if you want to like get a job with this. Because like unfortunately, no hiring managers are going to recognize you yet. So using like a Rust framework is not going to help get a job. You just want to learn too. Probably something like React or Vue, because the documentation is so good and there's so much of it. For a front end, for a back end, you're gonna need a back end to store this stuff away. You're gonna want, you can either go with sort of like Lambda style functions, where you're just doing serverless, or you could create a like Express server with Node. You can create, if you want Rust, you can use an Axum server or an Actix Web. Storage of files, I would recommend something like S3 is probably going to be the cheapest. I wouldn't put it onto like the local stuff, because that really limits where you can deploy to. And then if it's just for learning, you're not going to have like too many people hitting it, so it's not going to cost too much. But then like sending those files to S3, getting the public URL for that, and then using that in display, that's like the closest to professional, but also decently available. You would send the file to your backend. The backend would then send it to S3, and then you'd get a URL, store that into your database, and then put that in the front end. So that's without talking about specific stack, that's in general what you want. You need a backend, you need a front end, and you need some bucket to store files in, and that's kind of it. Did the newbie traps and lambdas get solved? You're talking about doing something wrong, not setting limits, and getting charged hundreds of dollars. In lambdas? Yeah, I don't know about lambdas. Doing something like ECS, where you can basically say never, you could basically tell something like ECS or EC2 to never, ever, ever open up a second version of it, and therefore it cannot scale. That is probably the cheapest way to do it with the least amount of foot guns. You're scared of learning lambdas because of some articles talking about that. I think like lambdas are decently okay with that. They're pretty cheap. They also spin them down and like get really, really slow, which is not great. So Vue.js, Node.js, Amazon S3, that's it. That's all you need for like the basic stuff. Yeah. I mean, that's like grossly underestimating the actual like code that goes in them. Like but those are like the general technologies. That would be the general stack. Yeah. Like if you're doing Vue.js, then like in Node.js, you might use something like Express. Okay, anyways, we were doing Tailwind. So I got myself a little bit distracted. So, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have Tailwind installed in this directory, and I'm going to have its output to this static, which means I can use the CLI for Tailwind. So if I'm installing this into here, I just need a package.json file with an empty brackets. Let's open up another terminal in here. Head into we'll go platform, web app, Tailwind, npm install into development mode. We want this Tailwind CSS. Would recommend DigitalOcean over AWS though. Has S3 API compatible blob storage for much less money. It's $15 per month if I remember correctly for that, right? And it's $15 per month, like, to start off with. I don't know if it would be much less money to begin with. It would have eventually, over time, it scales to be much less money though. Should I follow the official guides to learn Vue and Node? I think the official guides are perfectly fine. Like I think they're pretty good. I would say start with the CLI. So if you're gonna go with like Vue.js, start with the Vue CLI. Spin up a basic project, get the hello world going, and just sort of like play around in there. If you're familiar with just coding, which it sort of sounds like you have coding experience, but just not web, just remember that web is coding still. Like they're still programming. It still follows like the same rules of programming and everything else. It's in fact, it's become closer to normal programming than in previous years. And CSS is probably going to be the first thing that you're going to run into trouble with, but it again follows a series of rules, so you should be able to follow guides to help you out with it. Yeah, if you only put a few things in there, then AWS is definitely it's definitely cheaper. If you only put a few things in, I backed a bunch of stuff. I'm paying like 27 cents per month with S3 for some things. You want to interview for Amazon SDE at some point in 3 years, use AWS. If if you're gonna do anything professional, start using AWS. Get used to it. Get going with it, because I've known people who worked at AWS. They do want you to like use it if you're gonna work there, especially like on AWS team or like front end. Oh no, Patatas, you lost chat history. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, Twitch has gotten a tiny bit better at preserving chat history, but not really that great. All right, so we installed Tailwind CSS. Step 1. Okay, we need to run our init next. I want to init in here. That creates a Tailwind config.js file. And so here we go. So you're telling AWS or AWS. Sorry, AWS. So Amazon Web Services. So if you want to get a job at Amazon doing programming stuff, especially around web development, I would highly recommend then AWS. So Amazon Web Services. More of a Google Cloud platform than AWS fan. I mean, in the end, learn one, and then you can go with the other. AWS is probably the most complicated of them all, but not like a DevOps person once told me, learn AWS, so Amazon Web Services, and all of the other ones, like you can learn on the job pretty easily. That's mostly because AWS make things unnecessarily complicated, and therefore you can learn everything else. So AWS is like a database thing. So AWS is hard to explain. AWS is a cloud provider. So you can spin up a database in AWS, but AWS itself is not a database, but allows you to create a database in the cloud. Does that make sense? And then there's a lot more than just databases you can deploy to the cloud in AWS. There's a lot more. In fact, just within databases is a lot. So they provide server storage. Well, that's one of the things they provide. So they provide server storage. They also provide the ability to run virtual private servers, network the servers together, infinitely scale them so they can charge you an infinite amount of money, which is usually where a lot of fear comes in with AWS, is that infinite charge of money part. Basically, AWS gives you all of the tools that a company from a super small company, like let's say Brooks Builds here would be, all the way to Netflix, which I think would be the largest type of company that uses AWS, and of course have charging abilities between them all. So it does it all. It does everything you could possibly want. In fact, I was poking around in there. They have the ability to control satellites through AWS. So that too. Largest company that uses AWS is the CIA. Well, the more we know. Interesting. Okay, I did not know that the CIA would be that large to using it. Sometimes I wonder if they use the most resources too, or if they're just the largest company using it. And then the other thing is all of the other cloud platforms, Azure, Google Cloud Platform, DigitalOcean, consider that if you learn one of them, the other ones generally have the same ideas, just under different names. So yeah, exactly, Tanaka. Very, very much like all of those things. Okay, so we have you set up. Configure your template paths. Add the paths to all your template files in your Tailwind config.js. So we have HTML and JS, but I don't know what we're looking for here, like what we actually need to put in here. Let's see. So if I ignore content, add the Tailwind directives to your CSS. So interesting that they don't care. They're not asking about CSS here. They just want source input. Okay, so in source input.css. Uh-oh. Let me check out what that link was. No, wrong keyboard. That was AWS, Amazon. Okay. AWS should be whitelisted too. Hold on, give me a second. To spam protection links. Submit. Okay, that has been added. So now you should be able to resubmit that link. Pudata. And then it won't yell at you. Okay, so this input.css somewhere. Now, do I want to put that in here in Tailwind, or do I want to put that in like actual source? Like source is this is like Rust stuff. I might now static is where it's going to deploy to. I actually might want to put it in here, right? Or I might want to do a new folder and do like styles and just have this be separate. What would Tailwind CSS need your HTML JSS files for? Can't it use that to detect and strip unused CSS? They use just-in-time builds, so they check your files and try to output only classes which are used or might be used. Yeah, so that's what they said in here, that they're gonna scan stuff. Here, they're gonna scan all your files. Now, I don't have anything necessary, and it's not gonna find them. So having that content, I don't think is gonna be helpful. I think that's mostly for if you're adding it to an existing project. Also, a project that is normal. I don't think they're used to the idea of working with web components. Oh, sorry, WebAssembly. So if I use styles, and we'll just do like our they wanted a different name. They wanted input.css. You know what? I'm gonna go with their recommendation here. I don't have a better idea. So input.css in here. Yeah, exactly. I don't think that's gonna work in Rust or Wasm. So here we have input.css. And we want to add all of you in here. Okay. Start the Tailwind CLI build process. So here we're going to do source. So go find that CSS and output to where we want it to go, and then watch it. Okay. So then inside of here, all right, big differences. We are currently in Tailwind. So I want to go out one, go to styles, input.css, and then out one more to static. And we're going to do output CSS and then watch. Okay, so it built this basic style sheet is now this. Interesting. It can scan Razor, CS, HTML, and even files. We can tell it. Okay, so this part worked. So this is great. This part worked so far. If I tell you content, so I want you to go outside of Tailwind. So there is the index.html here. So that, and then also I want to go outside source. Well, there's no JS, so can you search RS? I can't imagine it's going to be very happy with this. I mean, okay, it rebuilt. Here. Okay. All right. So now I'm let's see. Now I am going. Okay, so we have this output. Next up, start using Tailwind into your HTML. So here we're going to have this link tag. In here, we're going to put this link up here and say, give me, it's not going to be dist anymore. It's going to be what we had essentially. Oh, I don't have it anymore. Oh no, here's my main CSS. I can remove that, but it's going to be this idea. So inside of our dist folder, where is that? Here it is. Inside of dist, we have static. So I want this to be static output.css. Okay. And there's our output.css, which means that now if I run you again, hey, style's changed. So it changed the font on me. So now we are using Tailwind here. Okay. I mean, we're not using it to any like, amazing things. It's like very basic, but okay, let's see. You have some stuff. So like class, text 3XL, font bold, underline. We can do, so we need to know like with some classes that are available to us to use. So let's see, what's something we can do? Do you have something already set up for me? Top right, bottom left, visibility. Okay, you have Flexbox grid type stuff. Yeah, font size things, backgrounds, borders, effects filters. Do you have, is there components built into here, or do I have to build the components myself? I sort of like don't fully yet understand the philosophy of Tailwind yet. So interactivity type things, I don't think they have any components. So I have to build those out myself, I believe. So, okay. We want to build out this nav bar here. I want this next to that. And I want to make you have like maybe sort of like a darker background. So let's do, if I want you next to each other, layout might be just like a flex. So class equals flex. Okay. So in my top menu, I would say, here's this image tag, and then here's the text next to it. I would maybe say, oh, there are components, but it's a paid library called Tailwind UI. So, okay. So if I want to be cheap, or I'm imagining that like I'm a company that's like highly customizing all this stuff, then here where I have my container, we're gonna just do class equals flex. There's a height to rem. Okay, so we're, oh, I need the height, so I'm gonna leave that there. This flex should now make it so that you appear next to each other. There you go. Okay. Now I want a specific height. So I want a sizing. How would I get that? Let's see, so like there's flex, space. Okay, so pace, spacing. I don't know what that. So sizing. Okay, so I want height maybe an H8. Okay, so let's H8U. I don't know if I also need to give a height to everything else too. This one I think we need, so like 2 rem, for example, is this H8, which it's so they're saying it's 32 pixels, probably because they're controlling the font in this case. But notice that I'm also zoomed in, which increases the font size, so it's not 32 pixels anymore. It's based upon whatever the font size is done here. So we can do an H8 also for here. So class is now going to be an H8. Literally nothing should change when this sort of flashes and refreshes. Okay, so we're good there. I want my line height. I want this, I want the Brooks Builds text to be vertically centered. So where do I get that? So let's do quick search. So if I want to do place content center, justify center, align content, place self. Container center. Which one would I do? So place content, maybe align content? Oh, like this. Okay. Use content center to pack rows in a container in the center of the cross axis. Is this grid stuff? Yeah, look. Okay, so it's grid and then content center. I'm not sure that that's going to work unless I also use the grid. Also, I don't know if that's exactly what I want to. Align items. Is there an align item center? This is not. This is kind of centered. Items baseline to align items along a cross axis such that all their bases align. Oh, okay. Oh. Items baseline. This is in flex. Okay, so items baseline. So that would be here. All right, so that brought it down to the bottom. So that's not exactly what I wanted. I want this to be more along the middle. So baseline is probably not the right one to use. But I think the general idea of what we're sort of like looking at here is is sort of like showing itself. So Tailwind has provided us a whole bunch of utility classes for us to use. Item Center. Let's see. Item Center. So this was, okay, so Item Center. Let's see. Okay, so let's go back to here. Let's try Items Center and try this again. Okay. Free one. Hello. How to grow as a front end engineer. The best way to grow is to improve it. Like grow. Let me redefine. Let me make sure we're defining the right things here. To me, growing in this case is growing your skills, growing potentially like your job and getting better. Well, getting better at your skills so you can get better jobs and potentially switch career. Like I guess not switch careers, but like move up in your career, get more money, get more responsibilities, get more all of that kind of stuff. And to grow as any engineer, it's really the same regardless if it's front end or back end or full stack or whatever, is to increase your skills. Do that by practice, by doing stuff. Hopefully you can do that during work hours. Sometimes your work won't allow you to do that. They don't like necessarily care or want to help, or what you want to learn in and grow on isn't aligned with where the business that you're working at wants to go. In that case, side projects, but basically doing more than like reading or consuming. So for example, if you're watching me and you're just watching, then you're not growing. Even if like I drop something that's interesting that you might think like, oh, that's really cool. I want to learn that. It's like, no. This is not learning. You don't learn by watching my stream. You learn by doing yourself. Running into problems, fixing them, retroing, and it's this really tight cycle. It's exactly like a test-driven development type thing, which is make an assumption about what's going to happen, try it, be proved right or wrong, come up with like how do I fix it? How do I go from here? And then repeat. And that's a very tight sort of feedback loop. And that's what you want to get into, is that sort of like doing cycle. And if you can get into the flow doing that, you can get a lot of learning done in a really short period of time. And that learning will equate to growing. Once you have the learning stuff, there's other things to do also to like help grow in a company, because like sometimes it's not quite enough to just have the skills. There are other things that you need to like to get those promotions. But I would say skills first. Once you have those, or at least you're on the way and you have good habits for those, and you're still having trouble like getting promotions, then we can talk about the next steps. You have only knowledge and not much money. If you have only knowledge and not much money, then maybe we should use some knowledge to get some money. Maybe. Okay, so that worked. So that item center worked exactly here. Now I want a little bit of space on the left. So I think there's like containers. I think I saw that there was a container type thing. So here, layout. There's container. A component for fixing elements width to the current breakpoint. The container class sets the max width of an element to match the min width of the current breakpoint. This is useful if you prefer to design for a fixed set of screen sizes instead of trying to accommodate for a fully fluid viewport. Okay. So I can do different containers here. How about open source contributions to projects like Vite? Is it because you don't have the domain knowledge? So it's all of those are valid, right? Any like as long as you're doing, then yeah, you're like there is learning happening. So if you're able to like contribute to Vite, then that maybe is like the level you want to be. So there's this idea in educational theory. Where's my pencil? Okay, pencil's good enough for this. We'll do a nice bright green. Okay, so this is known as in the educational terms what we call the ZPD, Zone of Proximal Development. And so what you want to be is somewhere in between here. So this is the zone of proximal development. Man, I should probably set up my my tablet so I can actually write easily. Development. Zone of proximal dev. If you're inside of here, you are learning. If you're down below, so down here would be, I'll put this as sort of like this light blue. This is boredom. So let's say you're working at a job, you're doing development work, but you're just building static web pages for like a marketing company. You're not like, you learned a little bit when you first started, but it's still the same kind of work, it's the same technology. You're just building the same things day in and day out. You stopped learning new stuff. What happened was you started here in zone of proximal dev, and then just slowly over time, that sort of became down here. You're below this bottom line. You're now in boredom area. You're no longer learning. You're wasting away. It's actually a really bad thing. Now, up above, we're gonna put this in red. This, what is the term for this one? This is, we'll do this as drowning. So, you might hear people say like, "Oh, I'm like, you know, I'm drowning in all this stuff." It's like I'm below the water line of this, or I'm just like completely overwhelmed. Overwhelmed is another good word for this. Overwhelmed. I can't handle it anymore. This is just stress. And not good stress. This is just I cannot do this. My boss asked me to work on this. I thought I was good to go with it, and I just don't know what I'm doing. I'm freaked out. I'm stressed. This is not a good place to be in. This is, you've bitten off more than you can chew. You can't handle it, and therefore you're up here. You want to be right in this area. So in a metaphor of sort of like the drowning versus boredom, this would be your dog paddling. You're just staying, you have to swim. It's like your feet can't touch the ground, but you're not so far out in the deep end that if you you're afraid you're going to die. You're able to just keep up, and you can keep this up indefinitely. It's painful, but it's not dangerous. That's where you want to be. This feels hard. This might feel stressful, but it's not the same type of stress. And then this thing, if you stay in here, that entire thing shifts upwards over time. And so if you are in here for like 2 years, stuff that previously was overwhelming and stressing to you will now be possible. And stuff that previously was hard but doable will now be in boredom state. So this is how you grow your skills over time. Stay in the ZPD. So yeah, I mean, it's a long way of saying open source contributions, as long as it's in your ZPD, yeah, like everything is fine as long as it's in your ZPD. Okay, so I wanted a container. Do I want to put that here? What is that going to do? Nothing. Okay. Out of curiosity, here's my nav. Here's my container. Okay, so I have this max width of 1024 pixels. Yeah, that didn't really do anything. I want full width fluid until the MD breakpoint, then lock to container. So, okay. I want something that maybe, to add padding. Okay, so maybe I want to use like this container. To center a container, use the MX Auto utility. I don't think that's what I want to do. I don't think I want to add MX Auto to this. But I'm going to try it anyways. See what happens. Is this going to center it inside of the nav bar, make it center the screen? Because like that's not what I want. Did I save? It's just taking a really long time to build. I did save. It is running. Okay, yeah. So here we have this MX Auto. Okay, so that's not doing anything good there for us. To add horizontal padding, use the PX size utilities. So like this PX4. So clearly, I would need to sort of like explore around with this to sort of see where I want to go. There we go. Okay, so now I have a little bit of the... I don't actually think that I need this MX Auto. Oh, so return. Yeah, I don't need the MX Auto. The PX4, and now if I'm fluid, that's not fluid. So that's not... I think I need like the other container, where it was like the MD container or something like that. It's like MD. What was it? Responsive variants. I want MD container. Until the MD is like the middle or something. Say MD container. It's not helpful either. Isn't your page width set to max 1024 pixels, but your actual page is 1024 pixels? Technically, it does nothing. Maybe. Did I set that somewhere? You're probably right. Where did I set 1024? Did I do that in like my HTML? Don't think I did here. Page width is based on width of window. Okay, so, oh, is it because I'm zoomed in? It like is changing things around a little bit. Okay, so let's do zoomed out, full width. Nothing there. That doesn't change anything. Breakpoints come from, yeah, I figured breakpoints would come from that. I guess I just need to like spend more time reading about how like which these containers use, and possibly instead of using, I guess like we have layout. I think I would want to use grid with this to set up like the column start ends and work with that. So do something like this. Span 3 items. So the grid calls 3, gap, something like 4. So then in here, we'd put in top menu. I would probably put you here. Grid code calls 3, gap 4, and then flex item center. I don't necessarily want you in here. Maybe I do, but maybe I want like, okay, so gap 4, then here I want let's say we have, so that's like the left side, right? So we have another div, and this will be like the middle things, and then we'll have the right. So just, you know, I might have something like, I am in the middle. Right side. So I might have like buttons or something else here. So I want these to be spread evenly throughout the top nav bar up here. And they kind of are. They're left side aligned. So this one I want aligned to the left. This one I want aligned in the middle. And this one I want on the right. So that might be then class flex items. Is it right or end? I can't remember if it's right or end. So I want that to be over here. Justify end. Okay, so it'd be justify end like that, and then you I want to be class equals flex justify center probably, or yeah, probably justify center. There we go. There's our right side. Items goes on the y-axis, justify goes on the x-axis, unless of course you use flex columns. But here we go. So now we have our sort of like top bar. Using Tailwind, we're able to get these here. Now, if I want a little bit of margin or padding along each of these sides here, I think, would I do that here? And say, what was that? Like a container? No, it wasn't container. It was something else. I want like the space. I want just a little bit of space around it. Probably margin. M. Like, I want like margin left, right. What's PX? Is that padding? Oh, okay, PX. PX star. So I can do PX like PX. Let's do PX what? Let's do PX like 5 because that should be really obvious when it happens. So if I do PX-5 here, is that only in the left and right? Padding left, padding right. It is. Okay, so I save you. And let's see if we now have padding on the left and right side. And we do. So there we go. And now if I make this smaller, yeah, it works for the most part. It like actually it drops it down and keeps them in the center together. So we're happy with that. All right, so this is the general idea. Now, if I want to customize our CSS, that would now be in our styles here. So we have input.css. I should now be able to create a new file, import it into here, and then just start using it and overwriting things if I really want to. And that would be for like component-based stuff. I'm not exactly sure what I want to do yet with that, but all right. We'll have to decide if I want to stay with Tailwind or if I want to go with Bootstrap, roll my own, or not. For right now, though, I'm thinking we might just stay with Tailwind because it does seem to be an industry standard, and I do want to learn it. So it'll take us a little bit longer to build everything, but I'm liking this so far. Let's see. So taking a look at our goal here. This has been in progress. So we've imported Tailwind in. We configured a top menu to use Tailwind. So we're good to go here, and I'm gonna mark you as done. So let's see. You're just terminals yelling at me about that, aren't you? So you're fine here. You're fine here. I'm actually surprised it didn't add in all the node modules. Okay, so we added Tailwind into the project. And I'll go ahead and push that up, and then that's all available to you if you want to check that out. Oh, I do have... Oh, it's this silly error again. I don't know how to make Rust Analyzer not care that VS Code doesn't have this environment variable, but the Docker container does. I need to figure out like how to get that okay with it. All right. Well, unfortunately, I have to head off to work today. I do have a day job, and it's alternating Friday, which means I'm actually going to go into the office today after my stand-up. So I will be back on Sunday. We're going to be taking a break from the web dev stuff and then playing some games, specifically programming games. We're going to play in Screeps Arena. We're using Rust to program them, so still using WebAssembly type things, but trying to get to a point where we're not losing against an opponent that literally does anything besides stand still and do nothing. We're not there yet, but we're working on it. That's on Sunday. I usually start around 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then go around until noon. So thank you again for hanging out with me today. If you came with the raid, thank you for coming out, and I will see you all next time. Bye.